Welcome once again to Breakfast Central. And of course, the conversations start here in Nigeria. The House of Representatives yesterday held a legislative summit on student loans to address the issues emanating from the Student Loan Act 2023. The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Tajudeen Abbas, at the summit said, education is integral to the development of any nation, and no country can afford to toy with the future of its young people. The summit was convened to harness the opinions of stakeholders and experts on the improvement of the Act.
The Student Loan Act is a legislative framework designed to address the financial challenges faced by young Nigerians to accessing higher quality education by assessing credit facilities, and aims to ensure that deserving students are not denied educational opportunities due to financial constraints. To bring us more update on the outcome of yesterday's summit, we're now joined by the coordinator, Yaga Africa Center for Legislative Engagement, Dr. Sam Ogeche. Good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Yes, good morning. Thanks for having me here.
All right. Please bring us up to speed as to what yesterday's deliberations were and what the conclusions were as well.
Yes, the summit was on the Students' Loan Access to Higher Education Act 2023 that seeks to provide, facilitate access to education for indigent Nigerian citizens. One of the key issues in Nigerian educational sector is accessibility of education. The cost of education has become so high that many Nigerians are unable to access. So the intention of the loan is to facilitate access by granting interest-free loans to Nigerian citizens who are studying in higher institutions in Nigeria. So several issues have been identified as constituting challenges to the enforceability of the Act. And the House of Representatives, having seen that the enforcement of the Act is going to be problematic, constituted an ad hoc committee to look into it. And the summit brought together stakeholders from various, angles in Nigeria. And some of the key challenges identified with the Act have to do with, one, applicability. If you look at the Act, it applies. The loan scheme is only available to students studying in public higher institutions. And the question is, those in private institutions, are they not Nigerians? After all, the loan is going to students, not the institutions. So that's one of the issues that stakeholders raised yesterday. Another one has to do with the domicile of the fund. It is domiciled at the CBN. And we are saying that, look, if the government wants to be serious as it wants to do in the Act, then there is need for a separate board that will have legal personality to be in charge of this loan, like a loans board, where the membership will be constituted by the president, not a committee that can be scrapped by any administration. Again, when you look at the Act, you also find out that the purpose of the Act, the purpose of the loan as specified in the Act, is for payments of tuition fees. And we are saying, why only tuition fees? After all, in some institutions, tuition fees are free. And even if they are not free, the challenges faced by students go beyond payment of tuition fees. What of other facilities? What of books? What of accommodation? What of feeding? These are challenges bedeviling the Act. And then you go again, you find out in the Act that there is this form of self-contradiction. In Section 5 of the Act, the governor of the CBN is empowered to constitute a special committee that will be responsible for enforcing the Act, for performing the functions of the fund. You go down to Section 7, that fund, that committee that the governor of the central bank is empowered to constitute, is constituted there. So the Act constitutes a committee in one angle and also empowers the CBN to constitute. So that's another major challenge with the Act. Then again, appointment of the secretary of that committee is the prerogative of the CBN government. And we are saying, stakeholders are saying that, look, if you want to ensure accountability, you don't leave this to the governor, to the CBN government. We have said that it should be removed from the CBN and even be given to a special board to be created for that purpose. In that light, giving the appointment of the secretary to the CBN governor compromises the integrity of the board, of the special committee established by the Act. So the stakeholders say that, look, this appointment should be done by the president. And the criteria, the qualifications for eligibility should also be stated. Another issue that came up was composition of the special committee. We had representatives, if you look at the Act, representatives of various ministries, like finance and education also. But there is no representative of students' unions. This loan is meant for students who are not represented on the committee. So the proposal is that there should be an amendment to bring in maybe NANS or any of the student bodies that is recognized. And then those who are representing the ministries, their qualifications should be stated, not below the rank of a director. That is what that's how to ensure that the committee or the board, as the case may be, is well composed. And then you go again, you see several other issues like repayment plan. If loans are given, how is the repayment done? If you look at it, it is not robust enough. The Act says 2 years after completion of the NYSC program. And if you look at it, 2 years might be too short a time. So the proposal is extend it to 3 years. What of those? The Act does not even take cognizance of the fact that some people are likely to be exempted. Not even likely. Some people will definitely be exempted from the NYSC scheme. In that case, when do they start repaying? The Act does not provide for this. What of a situation where a student, after getting this loan, is expelled or he withdraws? There are challenges bedeviling the Act, and then you find a situation where maybe somebody has taken the loan and he's self-employed. The penalties provided in the Act relate only in Section 18, only to somebody who is self-employed but refuses to declare his source or address of the business. And we are saying, if you want to ensure proper implementation, there must be more offenses. And then you provide the court that will be responsible for trying to
Dr. Gutre.
So this and more others.
It clearly sounds like an act that wasn't properly thought through before it was brought out for the Nigerian people. There's also, of course, certain things that, if you look through the act, also people did also complain about the requirements. So I would like that you also speak a little bit about that. The requirements, that Nigerian students have to be need, of course, before they're eligible for these acts. There's a part of it that says you need to be in a household that earns less than 500,000 naira per annum and other things. So speak also on, the deliberations you had yesterday on these requirements, for eligibility and, where the act also falls short in that regard.
Yes, the basic issue on the requirements was that, if this loan is for those who are struggling for higher education, then the requirement should be liberalized. You look at people who fall below annual income of 500,000. The minimum wage is 30,000. So if in a family, the man and the wife are working, you are going to have maybe about 700,000 or thereabout. But does that exclude them? Because if you put everything together, they are earning about 700. What is the cost of education? Can that 700 feed the family, take care of utilities, and then send someone for a decent education? So stakeholders believed and advocated that the requirements for eligibility are so strict. If you look at it, one of the issues is you must have two guarantors. One is civil servant, level 12 and above,
yes.
Legal practitioner and those. So some people are even saying, if I have a civil servant level 12 and above to be my guarantor, why? What's the big deal with the loan? That many people who are going to be beneficiaries of this loan are those who are actually indigent. That you have to simplify, you have to liberalize the conditions for eligibility so that people can actually benefit from it. Not that you have created it and you have technically shut out those who are supposed to be beneficiaries under it.
All right. Now that we've seen that there are several issues with these acts, several amendments that need to be made. What are the next steps going forward?
Yes, the memoranda that came in, especially the one from Young Africa, actually recommended that this act, the objectives, though very laudable, cannot be implemented as it is. And if you see, Young Africa made about 23 observations and 26 recommendations. If you put them together, the conclusion will be that this act cannot be amended. It has to be repealed and reenacted so that you can have a smooth and elegant legal framework that will, actually achieve the laudable objectives that the lawmakers had in mind before putting this law in place. So it is actually repealed. Take this one away and bring a new one. Yeah. Because if you look at cross-country consideration, we have this scheme in Ghana, we have in Tanzania, even in South Africa. It has been in existence. At home here, Bayelsa State has it. So, and we cannot operate this way. So it is to repeal the act and come up with an entirely new act that will actually serve the objectives or achieve the objectives as intended by the legislature.
Okay, I like the part, you also mentioned that, student loan shouldn't just cover school fees. There's also accommodation, and many other things that students require to go through a 4 or 5 year course that should not be ignored. It's not just the school fees. It's a pretty interesting point that was made there. But I also want to ask about, creating student loans for universities that, don't even give, a quality of education that is respected in many other parts of the world. I saw that ASU was present yesterday along with the Association of Nigerian Students and, of course, the FIRS. But I'm hoping that ASU also put that point forward. The standard of Nigerian universities across the country, should that also be a thing that would be considered before you give a person a loan to go through school?
Yes, ASU advocated that position. ASU argued that instead of giving this loan, why don't you give grants to enable the institutions, equip the schools, the classes with facilities and all those things for ease of learning, in which case the burden of school fees and all those things would be less. But that argument did not go down well with majority of stakeholders because tech fund is there. This argument as to facilities and all the rest, have been ongoing. There's tech fund, other intervention agencies are there. This one is targeted at students. You can have facilities and the education is still inaccessible. So while we have schemes like Tech Fund and others that are targeting provision of facilities and other interventions for the institutions, not even only universities, but polytechnics, colleges of education, and other tertiary institutions in Nigeria. The issue here is what do we do? The law is already in existence. It's not a legislative proposal. This is a law. It's an act of the National Assembly. And we are talking of how do we ease implementation? What do we do to make it seamless in terms of enforceability? So majority of the views of stakeholders is that, look, that scheme of grants is a different one, which is not within the purview of this act. But we are targeting students who are unable to go to school because of several factors. You can make it tuition free. You can make education even without fees. But how do I buy my books? How do I buy my research materials? How do I survive? The challenges go beyond fees. So we are targeting the individuals now, not the institutions. And because education is a right, if you look at the Constitution, Section, I think 28 or thereabout, or 18 of the Constitution, even international instruments, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, even and other regional instruments, they all make education a right. Under the Constitution, it is one of the core principles, what the government is, expected to provide for the citizens. So how is it accessible? It's not only providing, but making it accessible so that people are not technically shut out. So the ASU canvassed that position. I think that position also was canvassed by CAPA, but majority of stakeholders believe that students should be targeted and the access to education should be eased for them in the interest of Nigerian populace.
All right, Dr. Oguche, you've emphasized how it is important to have a workable law, and that is, the ease of application can be effected. And one of the ways in which you've suggested would be that the time for the repayments be extended. Do you have suggestions for repayment plans? Has Yaga Africa come up with suggestions for the repayment plans? Also, will the loan given will it factor in inflation? We realize that in Nigeria, for example, those who are taking loan for whatever project they're working on at the start of the year will not be able to execute it on the same budget because the price of everything has maybe tripled in some cases. So will the loan factor in the inflation, the ever increasing inflation rates? And does Yaga Africa have a suggestion for a viable repayment plan?
Yes, Yaga Africa made several recommendations in that regard. For example, after graduation, if you're a graduate, you must produce your certificate of repayment before you are eligible for employment. And if you don't have, which is one of the reasons, then your employer should be under a duty to document and be deducting 10% of your monthly income for the purpose of repayment. So those are some, and then Yaga Africa recommended that a verifying affidavit should be used along with every document submitted by applicants in the process of applying for the loan. So it's a bunch of recommendations, robust recommendations. The Yaga Africa factored in possibility of Nigerians relocating abroad without repayment. So all these things were factored in, and that is why we recommended that offenses should not be restricted to employers or self-employed people not being able or failing to supply information. What if you supply false information? What of collusion, where some people conspire to hide information from the authorities, to even underdeclare income? When that is done, you will see that repayment will be robust. In terms of inflation, that was not factored in because it is intended to be interest-free. If it is interest-free, well, we had an SCN who even came yesterday to share his experience. In the 70s or 80s, he got a loan, and when this loan scheme was in existence in those days, he was one of the beneficiaries, but he was unable to pay because there was no robust repayment plan in place. And that's why Yaga Africa, along with many other stakeholders, recommended robust repayment plan so that this loan scheme can be self-sustaining, it can be evolving without having to crash like it did in the past.
All right.
As quickly as possible, in maybe 30 seconds, you suggested that this act be completely done away with and we start the process again. Is this something that you think the House will be open to?
Oh, definitely. The House welcomed the idea immediately because one of the issues is if you amend, you are going to have challenges. You will even complicate issues because almost all the sections are affected. And it's a 23-section law, 23-section act. So if you have 23 sections, and for example, Yaga Africa made 26 recommendations, new provisions should be inserted, like account and audit. All those things that were not that are not in the present act, Yaga Africa recommended them. So if you are going to have an extended and expanded legislation like that, you can't achieve it by amendment. It's going to be inelegant. You are going to cause confusion. For that reason, it is actually the best option to repeal and reenact. And the House committee, ad hoc committee, was at home with that recommendation yesterday.
All right. Dr. Oguche, thank you very much for the work that you've done, and we hope that, of course, the National Assembly and the House Committee does take it seriously and fixes, these slight errors here and there, and of course, makes it work for Nigerian students and for Nigeria. We will be speaking with you again. Thanks a lot once again.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.